Ron.
Here.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Ron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron.
You done messed up, Ron.
Aaron is here. Welcome back, everyone, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Speaking of not being in a cult, guys, let's take a look. I have just received a fresh, brand new, up-to-date copy of Scientology's staff contract. Now, when I got a copy of this contract, it reminded me of two things. Yesterday, we had a chat about a new look-back window that's opened up in the state of California for people to sue their employer for instances where SA was covered up in the workplace. And one of the questions that was asked is, because this would be huge for Scientology, like Sea Org members and staff members, this would be huge to be able to bring civil actions for cover-up of SA without any concerns for statute of limitations. And the question was asked, wouldn't Scientology just say that their staff members aren't employees, that they're volunteers? And the answer is, of course, they would say that. And I don't know if that argument would hold up. Let's take a look at the language of Scientology's staff contract. And maybe some of the best legal minds out there on the internet can weigh in on whether they think this contract creates an employer-employee relationship. Also, several days ago, I did a video about Connor Cruz, Tom Cruise's son. And we were sort of speculating as to whether Connor was still in Scientology or not. And in that video, I pointed out that there's been a huge difference between how dedicated Tom Cruise's daughter, Isabella, has been to Scientology publicly, and how dedicated his son, Connor, has been to Scientology publicly. In the last couple years, Isabella finished all of her advanced Scientology auditor training, professional Scientology auditor training in London. They were using Isabella to promote Scientology and promote auditor training and courses and coming in and doing Scientology. And I said, they've never really done that with Connor. But you know what I always forget? I always forget that Connor was actually a Scientology staff member in Los Angeles at the LA organization. I always forget this. So the contract that we're about to look at is the most updated version of the contract that Connor would have signed as a staff member. All Scientology staff members signed this contract. Not only was Connor Cruz a staff member in Los Angeles, he worked in the ethics section. He worked in Department 3, the Department of Inspections and Reports, which has the ethics section in it, which means Connor Cruz, Tom Cruise's son, is one of the people who knew all of the dirt on all of the public Scientologists in Los Angeles, or almost all of them that would have been at that org. So most people don't know that. This is not a very long contract, but we're going to go through it as quickly as we can here. Church of Scientology of. So you would fill that in for like of Philadelphia or of Tampa or whatever. Okay, they call this a pledge of religious commitment, application for religious service, and general release. I, blank, am applying to serve as a member of the staff of the Church of Scientology of blank. Okay, interesting. You're applying. Okay, so this is not yet a contract. It's an application. But I think as we go on, it sure doesn't feel like an application. And it does use the word staff member. Can you be a volunteer staff member and not be considered an employee? I don't know, guys. I'm not an expert, but let's take a look at this. Pledge of religious commitment. 1, I am a Scientologist and want to dedicate the next 5 years or 2.5 years to the service of the Scientology religion and to accomplishing its religious goals. I have also pledged myself to the highest levels of ethical conduct as set forth in the Creed of the Church of Scientology and the Code of a Scientologist, each of which I have read and understand. 2, I believe that the sacred goal of all Scientologists is to help each being regain his or her full spiritual potential. The path to this greater spiritual awareness was discovered by L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of the Scientology religion, and is set forth in his written and recorded words that comprise the Scientology scripture. And by the way, guys, the language being used in this is purely just for the courts. Scientologists do not use these words. Scientologists do not ever refer to L. Ron Hubbard's words as scripture. They only do that when they're talking to the press or in courts of law. Okay. I also believe that these advanced spiritual states can be attained only through the practice of Scientology religious services. 3, I understand that the church, like all Scientology churches, operates for the sole purpose of assisting individuals to attain their true spiritual potential through the practice of the Scientology religion. 4, I believe that serving on the church's staff would be the greatest thing I could do to forward my personal sacred goal, the betterment of mankind. And for this reason, I now declare my deepest personal spiritual commitment to Scientology as my religion and to accomplishing its religious purposes by pledging the next few years in dedicated religious service to the church. You know what just occurred to me? Imagine being a member of Louis Farrakhan's Nation of Islam, of which many of the Nation of Islam members are also Scientology staff members. I'm just realizing most people watching, if you've been watching my videos for years, you already know this. If you're relatively new to the channel, you don't know this. Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam created a partnership with David Miscavige and the Church of Scientology. Louis Farrakhan encouraged all of his members to go do the Dianetics, the Hubbard Dianetics Auditor course in Scientology, and that doing Dianetics would help clear the Nation of Islam members of their past childhood trauma, and it would allow them to be better members of the Nation of Islam. Many of those members have gone on to do more than just Dianetics. They've gone on to do Scientology, advanced Scientology, Scientology's upper confidential OT levels, and a lot of these people have joined staff. Imagine being a member of the Nation of Islam, a religious group in its own right, and signing this staff contract with the language that is in it, and realize this has happened in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases. Okay, I think, yeah, I finished number 4. Okay. I guess number 4 continues on this page. Okay. I unconditionally apply for active service in the church's religious program as a member of its staff on the following terms and conditions. 1, active participation. I recognize and know to be true that the church, like all other churches of Scientology, is a spiritual center for its parishioners and the focal point of their religion in their community. The church provides introductory lectures, workshops, seminars, and other Scientology religious services to people new to the religion and spiritual counseling and training in the Scientology scripture to existing parishioners. The church also provides other religious services for its parishioners, such as marriages, funerals, naming ceremonies, or ordinations of ministers, and weekly Sunday services. The church also works to make Dianetics and Scientology broadly known in its community and disseminates not only the Scientology faith, but also the many social betterment programs the church supports. The church provides a safe and stable place for all the Scientology activities in its area, and for assisting its parishioners to move up the bridge to total freedom. I understand that all church staff are expected to make a total commitment to their religious service and must be on post and performing their religious responsibilities every weekday for staff serving on the church's day organization, or every evening and all weekend for staff serving on the church's foundation organization. I understand that I will be posted in the church where I am most needed, and that while my position may vary over time, my primary duties will be contributing to the ministry and dissemination of Dianetics and Scientology services and the overall accomplishment of the church's religious mission. Alrighty then. 2, conduct. I understand that all members of the church's staff are expected to uphold the highest standards of personal ethical conduct at all times. I further understand that every church staff member is expected to be totally familiar with and constantly observe the ecclesiastical, moral, and ethical policies, rules, norms, and practices of the Scientology religion and the administrative policies and procedures of the church. These are all published in the form of Hubbard Communications Office policy letters and bulletins and various directives that are issued by Church of Scientology International, the mother church of the Scientology religion. I fully and gladly accept this strict standard of ethical conduct. 3, post. I know that all Scientology churches' activities are intended to further a religious purpose. As a member of the church, I am aware that each post or position within the church is without exception in furtherance of a religious purpose. Accordingly, depending on the needs and requirements of the church, I know that I may be assigned or reassigned to a wide range of ministerial duties ranging from managing portions of the church's functions and activities, executing religious programs and administering these activities, introducing public and neighbors to the church's services and programs, or providing religious services such as auditing, training, ethics counseling, and cramming, to holding reception, routing communications, maintaining files, cooking food for parishioners and staff in the canteen, washing dishes, or maintaining and cleaning the facilities. I know these posts and all others within are designed to fulfill and forward the church's religious purpose and mission. I also know that as part of my post responsibilities and pursuant to church policy, I'm expected to study a minimum of 12 and a half hours a week to better carry out my religious duties and to advance myself up the bridge to total freedom, both in the religious training and auditing, to the benefit of all dynamics. That's a Scientology word, guys. Dynamics is one of the various eight different areas of life that L. Ron Hubbard divided life up into. That's self, family, groups, all humankind, plant and animal life, the physical universe, spirits, and infinity, essentially. Okay, so basically all of life, all of existence, all of survival. Okay, 4, financial support. Now, this is interesting. Let's see what this says. My desire and my intention is to serve my religion as a church staff member pursuant to my personal religious commitment and conviction, rather than for monetary gain or other financial benefits or incentives. I recognize and acknowledge that the church is not required to pay minimum wage or overtime to me. I further understand that the church does not provide a pension or other such benefits. So this is interesting, right? Because I've always been under the belief, the understanding that because Scientology staff members are religious volunteers, that is why they don't, they're volunteering. They don't have to get paid because they're not technically employees. I haven't seen the word volunteer yet. It's just basically acknowledging that the church is not required to pay minimum wage, but I'm not clear on the way this contract is laid out, what the staff member signing this contract believes is the reason the church is not required to pay minimum wage. Are all churches not required to pay minimum wage? I honestly don't know. Okay, 5, resolution of problems. Since my relationship with the church and my fellow staff members is strictly religious and based solely on my deeply held spiritual commitment to the Scientology religion, I believe any problem that may arise out of this relationship is also strictly religious in nature. Therefore, I agree that any problem between me and the Church of Scientology, whether the church or any other Scientology church or related organization, or any fellow staff member that may arise during or related to my service on staff, is to be handled in accordance with the doctrines of the Scientology religion, including the chaplain and Scientology ethics and justice procedures as follows. A, I understand that the first step in this procedure is to summarize the problem in writing and submit it to the Hubbard Communications Office, Department of Inspections and Reports, and I agree to follow this process. B, as a result of my belief as to the nature of my relationship with the church, my fellow staff members, and the Church of Scientology in general, I hereby agree that I will attempt to resolve any dispute I may have concerning my service as a church staff member informally by direct communication, or if that is not successful, through Scientology internal ethics, justice, and chaplain's court procedures, including religious arbitration, by requesting a board of review and, as necessary, submission of the dispute to the International Justice Chief of Church of Scientology International or his or her designee. Okay, release. 6, I understand and agree that any dispute over my participation as a Scientology staff member, by its very nature, would be a matter of religious doctrine, which therefore must be resolved exclusively by the ecclesiastical authorities and religious procedures of Scientology in accordance with my religious commitment to the Scientology religion. I therefore agree that I cannot and will not sue in a civil court or seek a jury trial in connection with any dispute with the church, any Scientology churches, or Scientology-related organizations, including without limitation, Religious Technology Center, Church of Spiritual Technology, and Church of Scientology International, any of their officers, trustees, directors, staff members, or representatives, or any other individual otherwise affiliated or associated with them in whatever capacity, hereinafter collectively the Scientology entities. And I hereby release such persons and organizations from any dispute, claim, injury, or loss I may have that is in any way connected to my service as a church staff member. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what they call the arbitration clause. And the enforceability of that clause is why staff members are required to sign this contract So this language exists in this staff contract. And anytime that a Scientologist does a new major Scientology service, a major course, a major auditing action, every single time they do that, they have to sign a new release that has this same language in it so that nobody can say they signed it under duress or whatever. Now, the one thing you're never really allowed to do is to take this release or this general release and to have a lawyer review it. I've seen people get in trouble for even implying that they might want to have a lawyer review it, because the implication is, why would you have a lawyer review it unless you didn't trust the Scientology officials? And if you don't trust the Scientology officials, well, then we have a problem. You might be potential trouble source A through J. And yeah, it's weird. But there you go, guys. That is the arbitration clause. That is what has that has been the bar that so many lawsuits against Scientology have failed to clear. Okay, 7. I promise never to bring a lawsuit and general release pursuant to the above paragraph 6. Wait a second. Hold on. Forgot to close the only app that doesn't respect my do not disturb settings. Okay. I don't know if you guys could hear that ringing. All right, let me start over. I promise never to bring a lawsuit and general release pursuant to the above paragraph 6. Oh, my promise never to bring a lawsuit and general release pursuant to the above paragraph 6 is unconditional and irrevocable and binding on my successors. I did not know that language was in there. On my successors, including anyone who may be acting or purporting to act on my behalf or for my benefit. Oh, I get it. Okay. I get it. However, if such a lawsuit is brought, then I want the church to submit this pledge of religious commitment, application for religious service and general release to the court to serve as a complete basis for the court to dismiss the suit and to prohibit it from ever being brought again. Are there any other churches that have its clergy members sign something like this? I would love to know. For all you former Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses out there, please let me know if the people who work in those churches have to sign forms like this. That's pretty wild. Okay, 8. It is my specific intention that this pledge of religious commitment, application for religious service, and general release serve as a general release of all claims, damages, causes of action of every kind, whether known or unknown, past or present, contingent or fixed, without limitation of any kind, which I or anyone claiming on my behalf now have or may hereafter have against any or all of the Scientology entities, including any claims that may arise in the future from any acts or events that foreseeably may occur as a result of or in connection with my service as a member of the church staff. You'll notice, guys, I haven't seen the word volunteer occur in this document even once. It says staff. To me, staff is synonymous with employee, but that's just me. I mean, yeah, okay. Commitment. 9. I further agree and understand that A, I have read this pledge of religious commitment, application for religious service, and general release very carefully, and have had every opportunity to get anything in this document that I may not have understood clarified. I can say without hesitation that I fully understand the terms and conditions on which my religious service will be based if my application is accepted. With this in mind and with full knowledge of what I am doing, I ask to be accepted as an active participant on the church's staff and a member of its religious community. I make this pledge an application of my own free will, solely to help forward the religious goals and tenets of the Scientology religion and the church itself. By signing this application, I am making a formal religious vow to participate in the church's religious program on the basis of the specific terms and conditions stated above and no others. Okay. B, should one or more provisions of this pledge of religious commitment, application for religious service, and general release be deemed null, void, voidable, or otherwise unenforceable by a court of competent jurisdiction, the remaining provisions shall nonetheless remain in full force and effect. The promises and agreements I have made in this pledge of religious commitment, application for religious service, and general release shall be governed by the laws of the state in which the church is physically located and be interpreted as broadly and inclusively as those laws will allow. Okay, signature. signature of a witness, and then someone officially accepts it. I mean, there you go, guys. I don't know. Would a lawyer looking at this, I'm trying to remember if there was any other paperwork involved in becoming a staff member at all. No, this is the legal contract. Would a lawyer looking at this contract say that it does not create an employee-employer relationship with a Scientology staff member and the Church of Scientology? I actually thought this contract was going to lean way more heavily into the religious volunteerism, and I'm really surprised that it didn't. Yeah. This look back window, I wish I had the browser tab still open. I would share it with you. You guys can refer back to the video that I did last night. Oh, yeah. The video last night was about how Blake Lively's lawsuit, how Blake Lively's lawsuit sort of unintentionally possibly helped future Scientology litigation. And one of the things we discussed later in that video is this look back window that's open until the end of 2026 for anyone in California who was sexually assaulted in the workplace, and that sexual assault was covered up by the employer. Statute of limitations are basically out the window. Oh, and it's for incidents that occurred it's either 2009 to present or after 2009. That's a long time. And there are instances of sexual assault that have been covered up by Scientology that's occurred against Sea Org members and staff members. And so, yeah, that's why the question came up. Are Scientology Sea Org members considered employees of Scientology? Are Scientology staff members considered employees of Scientology? One of the other things we discussed last night was, traditionally the Sea Org contract is the one where you're pledging service for 1 billion years, whereas this contract is 2.5 years to 5 years. When you're joining staff, you decide, do you want to do a 2.5-year contract or a 5-year contract? And if you're just joining staff as a general staff member and you're not going to go into any sort of full-time training program, then you just do 2.5 years. If you're signing up for any kind of a full-time training program, whether it's technical training or administrative training, you have to sign the contract for 5 years. And that contract starts running after you finish your training. And the training usually takes years as it is. So one of the things that I mentioned is that Sea Org members, for legal reasons, even though they're supposed to be working for Scientology for the rest of their lives, they are actually made to sign these contracts every 2.5 years or 5 years, these staff contracts, because these staff contracts are legal contracts. A religious commitment saying, I promise to work for Scientology for 1 billion years, not exactly a legal contract. So what do you think, guys? Does this contract make Sea Org members employees of Scientology? Does this contract make staff members employees of Scientology? I think it does. What do you guys think? Let's see. That is it for tonight. Let's see. It's 6:30. Yeah, that's going to be it for me tonight, guys. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.